Okay, and this meeting is now called to order. So I will call the meeting of the Milpitas City Council of August 12, 2025 to order. While this meeting is being broadcast via Zoom, oral public comment may only be provided live at the City Council meeting in person. City Council meeting is available for instant translation in over 50 languages with Wordly, accessible via mobile phone, computer, and video displays. By scanning the QR code located on the title page of the agenda in the upper right-hand corner. So back to today's business. City Clerk Guzetta, please take the roll call.
Vice Mayor Barbadillo.
Here.
Councilmember Chua.
Here.
Councilmember Lamb.
Here.
Councilmember Lian.
Here.
Mayor Montano.
And I am here. So before we adjourn to closed session, Acting City Attorney Creech, please brief the public on the closed session items for today. And we'll call for public comment at the closed session item.
Thank you, Mayor. Tonight you have one item for closed session is conference with legal counsel related to anticipated litigation pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9D2. Facts and circumstances related to a Public Records Act request, city as defendant. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And now I will call for public comment on this closed session item. Is there anyone from the public that would like to make a comment on this?
I have no public speaker cards, Mayor.
Okay, so with that, meeting is adjourned. Okay. Hey, Chief, thank you. Look at this. Look at that one. Has it been here all this time? Oh, okay. I thought you gave it to me. Okay, is it that time yet? Okay, now this meeting is now called to order. It is 6:45. And we will do a pledge of allegiance. Oh, actually, we need to have our city attorney report out for closed session item.
Thank you, Mayor. There is nothing to report out at this time.
Okay, thank you. And so now, let's rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Is there anyone that would like to lead? Okay, we'll have Vice Mayor. Go ahead.
Ladies and gentlemen, the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. And now we have the honor to have Councilmember Lamb do the invocation.
Yes. Let's pause a moment to reflect on the values that united us: community, progress, and shared responsibility. We are fortunate to be part of a city that embraces diversity, foster innovation, and strive to create a welcoming environment for all. May the decision we make be guided by wisdom and compassion, with the well-being of all residents in mind. Let us work together in the spirit of cooperation to build a city that honors our past, strengthens our present, and create a bright future for generations to come. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councilmember Lamb. And so now let's move on to public forum. Members of the public are invited to speak on any item that does not appear on today's agenda. So please note that oral public comment may only be provided live at the city council meeting in person. So a public forum will be limited to 3 minutes. So call for speakers, City Clerk.
We have Voltaire Montemayor.
Welcome, Mr. Montemayor.
Thank you. Voltaire Montemayor Milpitas, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Member of the City Council, City Manager, and staff. This is just, for me, I'm just refreshing it. Like some people say it was a summer vacation, but we need extension, right? So anyway, last week we had the National Night Out. And where else do you want to go to live as resident? But the main place is Milpitas. I hope it should be like the other cities and places could be like Milpitas. I'm proud of the police department, the community. So, not to mention, I printed the successful result of the National Night Out. So, thanks Citizen Academy, Team Academy, volunteer program, the neighborhood watch, and all. And also we had block parties, hot barbecue, ice cream. I think ice cream should be good. I was there. I wasn't there this year, but I've been attending. I've been joining. So as I said, yeah, I really want to emphasize how happy I am to live in Milpitas, and it's happy and peaceful place. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to make any public comments?
I have no additional public speaker cards, Mayor.
Is there anyone from the public on any item that is not on the agenda? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to announcement of conflict of interest. City Attorney?
Thank you, Mayor. I asked the mayor and each council member whether he or she has any financial or personal conflict of interest related to any of the items on tonight's agenda.
Vice Mayor Barbadillo,
None.
Councilmember Chua,
None.
Councilmember Lamb,
None.
Councilmember Leanne,
None.
Mayor Montano.
And I am none.
I further asked the mayor and the members of the Milpitas City Council to please disclose any campaign contributions of $100 or more received within the last 12 months from any of the parties entering into contracts with the city on tonight's agenda, or contributions received from development project applicants for development projects on tonight's agenda.
Vice Mayor Barbadillo,
None.
Councilmember Chua,
None.
Councilmember Lamb,
None.
Councilmember Leanne,
I believe there is a 250 from one of the applicant at tonight's meeting. So yes.
So to disclose any potential campaign contributions, you would need to do that by identifying the applicant, the nature of the potential issue.
Yes. I'm not quite sure, but it was John for 250 within the 12 months. And it is Mission Square on today's agenda.
and Mayor Montano.
None. So now we're moving on to the code of conduct. Councilmember Chua will recite that.
Thank you. Milpitas City Council Code of Conduct. Be respectful and courteous. Model civility. Avoid surprises. Praise publicly and criticize privately. Focus on the issue, not the person. Refrain from using electronic devices while on the dais. Disclose conflicts of interest and affiliations related to agenda items. Separate governing from campaigning. The council speaks with one voice after making policy on issues. Respect the line between policy and administration. Council will hold one another accountable to comply with this code of conduct. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you very much. And so now moving on to the approval of the agenda. Is there anyone that would like to make any changes before making a motion? We have Councilmember Chua wants to make a motion.
Seeing none, move to approve the agenda.
Second.
Okay, so it was moved by Councilmember Chua and seconded by Vice Mayor Barbadillo. So now we'll call for the vote.
Vice Mayor Barbadillo,
Aye.
Councilmember Chua,
Aye.
Councilmember Lamb,
Aye.
Councilmember Leanne,
Aye.
Mayor Montano.
And I'm an aye. Thank you, everyone. And so now moving on to the consent calendar. We're going to ask staff, do you have any comments?
No comments or changes.
Okay, no comments or changes. And so now we'll have the council, anyone from the council that would like to make any changes on the consent calendar. We have Councilmember Lamb.
Yeah, I'd like to pull C7 and C10.
So Councilmember Lamb has asked to pull C7 and C10. Is there anyone else that would like to make any, to pull any more items? Seeing none, is there a motion? And we have Councilmember Chua.
Mayor, if I may, first for a recommendation.
Sure.
Councilmember Leanne, for the disclosure, was that in relation to Mission Peaks Homes? That's item C12 on the consent calendar? Sorry, Councilmember Leanne, was that item C12 for Mission Peak Homes? I think you said Mission Square, but was it Mission Peak Homes?
I apologize.
Mission P.
Was that the correct item?
Yes.
Then while a campaign contribution of $250 does not necessarily constitute disqualifying interest, my recommendation would be to take this item in two different votes and to prevent any kind of appearance of impropriety to Councilmember Leanne for you to step off for the vote as to just that item for the consent calendar.
Isn't there a time frame?
Was it
Because
within
that
the
was the
12
last
months?
election, that was 2024. Anyway, go ahead.
Was it within the last 12 months?
I'm trying to go back to the records and not quite there yet. Should have checked. Or-
Mayor, for
Councilmember Chua?
clarification to City Attorney, because Councilmember Lan is recusing herself for C12, right? Is that what you're suggesting?
Correct. I'm not saying that there is a conflict here. I'm merely saying to protect the vote and to avoid the appearance of any kind of impropriety, regardless of whether this could be possibly categorized as a conflict of interest. My recommendation would be to take the vote on this item in two separate issues, in two separate passes, to give Councilmember Leanne the opportunity to recuse herself from the vote related to C12.
So do the rest and then separate the C12. Got it.
Correct. That's my recommendation.
Okay, Mayor.
Councilmember Chua?
Move to approve consent calendar by pulling C7 and C10 for the first vote. Right, C10, right?
Okay.
Second.
Is there a second?
And C12?
No,
No,
not yet.
that's totally different. She's just going to recuse herself when that item comes up.
We'd have to take a separate vote on C12, or she would have to recuse herself from the entire consent calendar.
No, I'm giving her a chance to vote for the rest of the, do
Okay.
you see what I'm saying?
Yes.
Is the motion clear?
The motion is clear. We're going to take the vote on the consent item for C12 separately, the vote on the balance of the calendar with items C7 and C10 pulled.
Okay, so you can vote on that.
Mayor, we need to take
So,
public
seconded?
comment.
Vice Mayor.
Okay, so it was moved by Councilmember Chua and seconded by Vice Mayor Barbadillo.
And,
So let's call for
and
the
Mayor,
vote.
the clerk had a good point. We need public comment on.
Oh, okay. Public, any comments from the public on this item?
I have no public speaker cards. If anyone from the audience wants to speak.
Okay, so let's proceed with the vote.
Vice Mayor Barbadillo,
Aye.
Councilmember Chua,
Aye.
Councilmember Lamb,
Aye.
Councilmember Leanne,
Aye.
Mayor Montano.
And I am an aye. Okay. Thank you very much. And so do you want us to move on
And
with?
then,
item?
Councilmember Leanne, is it your desire to recuse yourself for the vote on C12? Then for the moment, can you please step off the dais and then someone can call for a motion on that.
Okay, is there a motion? Yeah.
Move to approve C12.
So it was moved by Vice Mayor Barbadillo and seconded by City Council Member Chua. And let's call for the vote.
Vice Mayor Barbadillo,
Aye.
Councilmember Chua,
Aye.
Councilmember Lamb,
Aye.
Mayor Montano,
And I am an aye.
and Councilmember Leanne has recused herself from the vote.
Okay. Thank you. And so now moving on to public hearings, and we will have our city manager discuss item 14. Or announce, rather.
Sure. The item 14 is for the city council to conduct a public hearing and consider adoption of a resolution approving general plan amendment GP 25001 and introduce an ordinance approving zoning text amendment and zoning map amendment ZA 25001 to comprehensively update the zoning ordinance. And we have before you Director Jay Lee, who will be presenting.
Good evening, council members, and we are excited to be here for this project. It's a big one. the City of Milpitas Comprehensive Zoning Ordinance Update, Phase 2, and this is for the adoption hearing. Next slide, please. For the presentation, I'll start by providing an overview of the project and pass it off to the consultant team and Lisa Weiss Consulting, and we have a representative, Jen Murillo, the project manager from the consultant team, joined virtually to be able to deliver the rest of the presentation. We also have our project manager, Holly Pearson, here joined virtually as well. But we will start with the project overview and then the outreach conducted, and then go into a little more detail regarding the zoning ordinance update. Then go over the update to the zoning map, which accompanies the zoning ordinance, and then review the amendment to the general plan, which is required as part of this project, and then quickly go over the CEQA, the California Environmental Quality Act analysis that was done as part of this project, and then conclude with staff's recommendation. Next slide, please. So before getting into the comprehensive update before you today, Phase 2, I did want to go over briefly a little bit of history, which includes Phase 1. And Phase 1, the council adopted Phase 1 on June 18th of last year. And this project, or Phase 1, was focused on achieving consistency with the updated general plan and metro specific plan, which were both updated within the last few years. The reason why we split the project into 2 phases is, number one, it's a huge project, but also for Phase 1, there were some immediate, more urgent needs, which primarily is related to ensuring consistency with the general plan. And as you can see there, a big focus was to create new zoning districts which implement new general plan land use designations that were created as part of this update. One of them is the Business Park Research and Development land use designation. And then the other piece of this project was to implement or create zoning districts to implement the metro specific plan. Another aspect of this Phase 1 was to update the zoning map to ensure consistency with the general plan. So a lot of it was about consistency. Just to remind you of what was adopted previously. And now for this phase, Phase 2, it is a full reorganization and modernization and updating of the zoning ordinance. So think of it as more of an administrative change where we are really changing how the zoning ordinance looks because we haven't done a comprehensive update of the zoning ordinance for a long time. For the last many years, we have been doing ad hoc zoning amendments, meaning as needed, minor changes to respond to specific issues that arise over time. We've been doing these ad hoc amendments, but it's been a long time. And if you are familiar with the zoning ordinance, there are many outdated terms, outdated graphics. It's a very dated ordinance, so a full-scale comprehensive update was needed, and that's what we are here today to discuss. And also there was a focus on consistency with new city policy documents, including the Climate Action Plan, housing element, which we updated recently as well, some new state and federal law, and also current best practices in land use planning. Okay. And before passing it off to Holly and our consultants, I did want to be clear on what this Phase 2 is intended to do and what it is not intended to do. I'll start with what this zoning update, comprehensive zoning update, is not intended to do. It does not make significant changes to zoning standards and allowable land uses. So while some standards will change and there are some changes in the language, the intent was not to make major changes. So for example, the intent was not to change a commercial or industrial zoning district to a residential zoning district and vice versa. Also, the intent was not to increase the development potential for sites in the city. But in actuality, really the focus, as I mentioned, is to modernize the zoning ordinance, make it more user-friendly, a greater reliance on graphics and tables, a better organization so that's easier to find things, also to ensure an internal consistency. Our staff deal with the zoning ordinance all the time, and we find inconsistencies more than we'd like, and then also to comply with more recent state and federal law. This project, phase 2, also does not, as I mentioned, allow for more residential density than what is already allowed. So while there are minor changes to the density ranges, those are only so that the zoning districts, the densities that are allowed in the zoning districts match what is already allowed in the general plan update. And the general plan update ultimately guides what is allowed. So there are no changes to the development potential for residential development. And in actuality, what the update is meant to do is to protect our single-family residential neighborhoods through good design standards for those neighborhoods themselves, but also the neighboring properties. Lastly, the CZO update is not intended to implement MTC's TOC policy. So if you recall, the TOC policy calls for or recommends higher residential and commercial densities near transit stations. While the purpose of this project is to facilitate mixed-use and transit-oriented development where appropriate, it is not increasing any densities that are allowed in these areas beyond what is already allowed. So just to facilitate maybe more of how the development looks, right? And part of this is by a little bit reducing the parking in a moderate way, which we will provide more details soon. Also relying on transportation demand management measures, which focus more on reducing the parking demand, not as much the parking supply, to ultimately have multimodal transportation, which is meant to supplement or complement the type of mixed use and transit-oriented development that's already envisioned in certain areas within our general plan and our specific plans. Okay, so just wanted to clarify what this is intended to do versus what it is not intended to do. And then now if we go on to the next slide, I'll pass it over to Jen Murillo from LWC to go over the project timeline and more of the details of the project. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jay, Mayor, council members, Jen Murillo with LWC. So after about 2.5 years, this 2-phase zoning ordinance update project is at the final step. That is this hearing for adoption of phase 2. The first phase of this project, as Jay mentioned, was that expedited phase for new zoning districts and updating the zoning map to implement the general plan and the metro specific plan. That was completed last year. We are now in this second phase, which is that full ordinance reorganization, modernization, and rewrite. So we're pleased to be here at this stage. Next slide. Throughout this project, we've included a variety of opportunities for public outreach and input. We had a dedicated project website. We created a zoning advisory group. We provided community workshops, an online survey, office hours with planning staff. And we also held study sessions with both the Planning Commission and the City Council. A draft of the zoning ordinance was available from about mid-December through March. And during that time, we did have the last council study session, which was in March, where we discussed the draft ordinance. And then based on feedback we received during that time, we've now prepared the current draft that you're considering tonight. Next slide. So overall, our approach has been focused on user friendliness, a logical organization and structure of the code, which has included a relocation of the code to a new title in the municipal code. That allows us the opportunity to have a really intuitive and more convenient numbering system that can accommodate amendments over time. We've focused on updating terms, removing that archaic language, and focused on clarifying standards, simplifying standards, and procedures. In that vein, we added tables and graphics, again, to make the standards and code more user-friendly. Because of this shift in where the zoning ordinance is proposed to be located in the municipal code, there are other amendments throughout the municipal code to reflect where the zoning ordinance will now live and the new numbering within that updated ordinance. Next slide. As required by law, we've made modifications to ensure consistency with the general plan and state law. That has included modifying the density standards and the intensity standards or floor area ratios that apply, and that is to ensure the alignment or consistency with the general plan, like Jay mentioned. We also have addressed specific housing types, things like emergency shelters and other housing types that are required for the city to address by state law and the housing element. And then we've also revised the sign regulations. That is so that they are content neutral, meaning they aren't regulating based on the message of the sign, which is necessary to comply with legal standards. Next slide. We also worked really closely with city staff to find opportunities to reduce permit or approval levels where that was appropriate. So for example, proposed use coming in that may today require a planning commission hearing and approval, we found opportunities to reduce that approval down to a staff level review. So those changes, of course, vary by zone, but the focus was to streamline the review process where it made sense, and then also clarify the procedures so it's clear both to an applicant and to staff what is the order of operations, the requirements, and the findings to get a project approved. We also added a new approval called a minor deviations approval that allows staff to approve places where there are small deviations in a project from complying with certain standards in the code. So again, with a focus on streamlining and facilitating reviews and approvals. Next. Land uses have also been updated and reorganized. This included recategorizing and consolidating uses to reflect more modern uses and to also allow for more flexibility as uses change over time. This is really a best practice approach, and it allows for new businesses to move in and uses to change over time in a manner that streamlines and reduces potentially either staff interpretation to determine if it's a permitted use or requires a permit, and ultimately can lower the length of time for a new business to move in and begin operating. Next slide. Now, since you saw the draft of the ordinance in March, we wanted to note a few of the changes that we've made since based on feedback we heard from the Planning Commission, the public, and from you as well. We did make some changes to some of the standards proposed for new single-family development. We did revise those to reduce the requirement in terms of the dimensions for the entry feature for single-family homes. We also clarified that a covered parking space for a single-family home would only be required if 2 or more parking spaces were required. We adjusted the allowed sign area for multifamily uses to ensure that a sufficient amount of signage would be able to be provided. We added a vehicle sales limited use that was based on feedback from economic development. And then, of course, over time, there were some additional legal updates we had to fold in and made any typo corrections as well. And then based on the council's adoption of the housing opportunity districts just a couple or a few months ago, we were able to take those adopted new zones and integrate them into the comprehensive zoning ordinance. Next slide. So as we mentioned, the zoning map was updated with phase 1 of this project, but as we started to do this second phase of the rewrite of the ordinance, we found that there were a couple small changes to make in the zoning map. That largely was the opportunity to eliminate multiple overlay zones. Those are zones that provide an additional level of standards on top of a base zone standards. And those were just outdated, they weren't effective, just not being used. So we're able to clean that up, and we include still the freeway corridor overlay. That overlay remains in place. That is mapped on the zoning map. And we also converted the mobile home park overlay just strictly to a base zone. Again, just making it really transparent to a property what the applicable standards are without having to look in two places. Next slide. The general plan amendments for this project are contained within just this one table in the general plan and is strictly to align for consistency with the updated ordinance. That is to reflect that the mobile home park overlay is now going to be a base zoning district, and just to strike the R5 zoning district, which is, it's not applied to any property and not affected or not reflected in the zoning ordinance. So just cleaning that up. Next. So this project was reviewed under state environmental law, the California Environmental Quality Act, or CEQA, and that resulted in an addendum being prepared, and that EIR addendum found that the impacts of the proposed project remain consistent with the impacts that were previously analyzed under the general plan EIR. That there are no substantial revisions this project would result in or require in that general plan EIR, and there's no new significant information or changes in circumstances that have occurred since that general plan EIR was certified. So therefore, there's no further environmental review that is required beyond the EIR addendum that's been prepared and included in your packet. Next. So with that, Planning Commission made a unanimous recommendation to the City Council on this project. They recommended that the council determine that the addendum to the final EIR for the Milpitas 2040 General Plan adequately analyzes the potential environmental impacts associated with the proposed general plan and zoning amendments. Determine that the EIR addendum is in compliance pursuant to CEQA guidelines section 15162 and 15164. Adopt a resolution approving general plan amendment number GP 250001 and move to waive the first reading beyond the title and introduce ordinance number 38.858, amending the Milpitas Municipal Code and the zoning map. Thank you for your time. We appreciate it, and we are happy to answer any questions you have.
Okay, thank you very much for your presentation. So, does anyone have any comments to make, or just do you have anything else to say about that? No. Okay. Okay, so let's have the City Council. No, actually, I have to ask public comment first. Anyone from the public have any comments?
I have a card from Yoli Garcia.
Good evening, Mayor
Welcome.
and council members. I'm Yoli Garcia, longtime resident, and I'm here representing our community group, Milpitas Involved Citizens, otherwise known as MIC. One of our members, John Dahl, actually read and reviewed the entire updated zoning ordinance, which I believe is a few hundred pages. I'm here to let you know that our group also reviewed pertinent sections, and we'd like to thank Holly Pearson and Jay Lee for meeting with us, for their time and providing answers to our questions and concerns. MIC would like to ask council to go with your staff recommendations. They did an awesome job as usual. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
I have no additional public speaker cards.
So we have Mr. Montemayor, come on up.
Voltaire Montemayor Milpitas. The good thing is that there's one part of the person page a while ago that we cannot touch what we agree that those are solid ones already, and we're really trying to improve to the best and for the good of the public. That's a great thing. Thanks.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to make any more comments? If not, I will close the public hearing and move on to council discussion. Any of my colleagues want to make any comments at this time? Okay, so I have a couple of comments. So can we move back to slide 6 and regarding the survey? Thank you. So my question was, you said you had technical advisory committee meetings for stakeholder interviews. Who were those stakeholders?
I can answer that question. Good evening, council members. I'm Holly Pearson. I'm the Planning Department's project manager for the zoning update. The list of stakeholders we interviewed at the beginning of the process was kind of, we pulled together a list of recommendations from Alex Andrade, from Ned Thomas, who was then the planning director, from some of the planning department staff, applicants that they had worked with, developers, architects. So we had a pretty good cross-section of sort of business interests, developers, designers, nonprofit affordable housing developers, business advocates. So we kind of culled the list from multiple city sources.
Okay, yeah, I think the city has periodically, you guys meet with a lot of the developers and other stakeholders on other issues, so I get that. And you had community workshops, and you had 2, and I'm just wondering what was the how many folks showed up to those community workshops?
Unfortunately, the turnout was not great at the community workshops, despite a lot of outreach work that we did. The first workshop was during phase 1, and I believe that was an all virtual workshop. Is that correct, Jen? Yeah. We had, it was something like 10 people at the first one. And for the second community workshop, which was an in-person, it was actually a hybrid. So we had an in-person workshop at the recreation center, community center. And then we also had simultaneous option to attend via Zoom. And there were, again, less than 10 people in attendance at both in person and on the Zoom. We did really put the word out and try to get more people to come out.
Okay, yeah, so I'm glad that the Milpitas involved citizens were one of those. I'm assuming community workshops, but I will tell you, and I don't know how you select those folks, but in the past it's always been the same people. So in the future, do more outreach to people that are not usually involved, and I don't know what that will take. Maybe some mailing or something, some other method. But yeah, we need more voices. To more community outreach. Moving on to slide, let me see, slide 8, the FAR changes. You said you do reduced and clarified lower type of permit.
Back one slide.
FAR?
I think
Was
she
that the-
asked for slide 8.
Oh, slide 8, yeah, slide 8. So modified density standards and the FAR. So my question there, can that be changed, or once you designate as FAR standard, can that be changed to, for example, in the past we've had some FAR, but for businesses, especially on Main Street, and it's so small that you wonder why did they even bother making that spar so small? Some of the businesses they don't even have enough room to move. So I'm just wondering, can that FAR be improved or improved?
Well, we always have the option to amend the general plan if we find over time that our development standards are not yielding the kind of development and the kind of economic activity that we want to see. We do, of course, always have to make sure that the floor area ratio standards in the zoning ordinance are consistent with those in the general plan. So if we're always at liberty to amend, although we can only amend the general plan a certain number of times per year. But I mean, the general answer is yes, they can be adjusted, starting with the general plan and then the zoning to follow. However, we believe that the increases we've proposed to the floor area ratio are going to be an improvement to what you're speaking to, allowing for more development.
So it can, I guess, I'm still not clear, it can be revised or it can't? Those density standards, the PAR standards.
So we would have to begin by amending the general plan if we wanted to increase the floor beyond what's currently proposed. If it was still insufficient, we would have to change the maximum floor area ratio in the general plan and then amend the zoning to be consistent with that. So which the city is able to do.
I see. You have to go back to the general plan. Okay, thank you. And then on page 9, there you go. Now, I had a question. Oh, I guess it's 10 because that's the one that with the CEQA. Is that the one with the CEQA? Because so I'm guess my question is, I think it's the slide that had the CEQA, and I'm just wondering if will this be able to streamline a lot of the projects, because that's been one of our biggest issues. That one, thank you. 14, slide 14. That's been one of our biggest issues, is that, and it's not just our city. I've spoken to several council members, mayors, and it's the same thing. They get complaints about projects taking too long. So will this new CEQA, will it streamline the projects?
Do,
Go ahead.
So, sorry. Hi, this is Jen. So in this case, and we also have our representative from First Carbon who prepared the CEQA review on the line in case she has anything to add. But in this case, what was done for this project was an addendum to an environmental impact report that was certified for the general plan EIR. So this project already took an opportunity in terms of tiering and streamlining off a much larger document, the general plan EIR. So this document, the addendum, I don't believe it provides further opportunity for project or development streamlining under it. But I do believe that because the general plan EIR provides a large umbrella of analysis based on the envelope in the general plan, there may potentially be opportunities to streamline in that regard. But Maddie Dolan, please feel free to chime in if you have more.
Okay, thank you. And one last thing. So, I'm sure you've heard of Senate Bill 63. How will this Senate Bill 63, will it supersede what this plan here with the new the zoning laws that we're going to be implementing?
Director Lee, you could speak to
Because
that.
SB 63 is primarily focused on new housing along the transit corridor, all transit corridors, any even bus stops. So anything to do with transportation. Will SB 63 supersede this zoning laws that we have, or policy that before us?
I'll try to answer that question. So for the housing along transit corridors, are you perhaps speaking about AB 130 or SB 131, where it provides CEQA exemptions for infill housing?
No, it's SB 63, and I think before that was SB 79, which our city did not, even California, the League of California Cities was against, because it did take away our local control. So I'm just wondering if SB 63 supersedes this zoning that we're doing.
Because I believe SB 63, although I'm not familiar with it, when looking it up, it's related to a funding, like funding for public transportation. So perhaps it's another state law. I'm trying to figure out which state law we're talking about.
Okay, well, because I think the first one was SB 79, but I guess but that wasn't very popular. So then the legislator created another one, which is SB 63. So yeah, and that one is because that went before the VTA board, and they were for it, of course, because that's their business, light rail. So just wondering, but if you don't have an answer, that's fine.
Well, I have a general answer, and I do see SB 79 is the bill that the substance is similar to what you're describing, which is increase housing density around transit stops by allowing taller buildings, looks like up to 7 stories. This project would not supersede state law. So, typically state law, if it's a requirement, like that's what trumps whatever local laws there are, unless it allows for some flexibility at the local level. But the comprehensive zoning ordinance update would not, for example, for areas that are potentially could go higher because of the state law, even if the comprehensive zoning ordinance update were to establish lower height limits, we would not be able to implement that if there is a relaxed standard for height through the state.
Yeah, it goes back to taking away our local control. So I thank you for that. Okay, any more? I'm done with my questions. So any more from the council members? We have Vice Mayor Barbadillo.
All right, just for public's understanding, I find it so technical. So it says that this amendment will preserve mainly most of the same as the old one, and except some changes with regards to building heights, minimum setbacks, allowable density, and allowable uses. In simple words, what does that mean, so that we can understand it?
Sure, I'll take a stab at that. So I think it's important to emphasize that the zoning update makes very, very few changes to what can be built or what kinds of activities can occur in the city's single-family residential areas, which comprise a large portion of the city. So we made some very minor changes to, for example, a side setback. The changes that we did make to development standards were for consistency with programs in the housing element. So the housing element, again, trying to facilitate and remove obstacles to housing. So for example, a very small adjustment to the setback requirements in our R2, our 1 and 2 family zone, and our R3, which is the medium density residential zone. There were minor adjustments to the side and rear setback requirements. We made a couple of changes to the allowable density in residential areas, which were some of the higher density residential and mixed use areas. And the purpose of those density increases were for consistency with what the general plan allows in the corresponding land use designation. So they're really fairly small, well, especially in the lower density residential areas, small adjustments. And other than that, we've added some very simple design standards for single-family neighborhoods that should help to preserve the aesthetic quality, the visual appearance of those neighborhoods. But by and large, we're not changing the density allowed in the single-family areas, and the zoning will function much as it does now in those areas. So I hope that answers the question.
Right. So those minor adjustments, like, we used to have 5 feet setback. Now it's 4.5. Is that
Exactly.
something we used to have a height of 15 feet? Now it's about 17. Just things like that, so that the public would understand, what are we doing here, what we have studies for the last 2 years, and what we're trying to approve. What I'm trying to ask is, what can somebody from Dixon Landing owning a house would expect on this new updated ordinance?
Sure, and that's a very good way of asking, making it very accessible to residents. I would say most of the more significant changes, I mean, it has to do with things like parking requirements. It has to do with our sign standards, as Jen talked about in the presentation. So there are things that would show up perhaps more in our commercial areas, signage and the amount of parking that a business requires. Much less so in the residential areas. Jen, if you would like to add anything, it's kind of hard to generalize because it's a 430-page ordinance, and so there's a lot of detail to it. But in general, I think this is a good way to summarize what's changing and what isn't.
Okay. Barely 2 months ago, we approved the housing opportunity district last May. And on that, we created what we call the Neighborhood Center Mixed Use, the NCMU. Remember that discussion? So now we are on the final phase, actually approving the 2-year process of this updated ordinance. How did we reconcile what we approved in May to the final stages of this final updated proposed zoning ordinance?
Yes. And so if I can just back up one step and give a little bit of background for those who may not be completely familiar. So as Vice Mayor Barbadillo said, the housing opportunity districts were just approved a couple of months ago. So that project was moving forward concurrently, but separately from the zoning update. And the reason for that was because the city received grant funding to do the HOD work. So at the time that the HODs were adopted, we had completed the full public draft of the comprehensive zoning ordinance update. And we had taken it to the city council, the planning commission. It was in between the planning commission's recommendation to the council for approval of the zoning ordinance update. And tonight's council hearing was during that interim, we integrated the approved zoning for the housing opportunity districts into the comprehensive zoning ordinance. It was a little bit challenging because the HOD zoning, the NCMU zones and the updated town center zones were prepared in the format and the structure of the existing zoning code.
Right.
And in the comprehensive zoning update, we have a new structure. We've moved content around quite a bit. So it wasn't quite as simple as just copying it over verbatim. We did the closest thing we could to copying it over verbatim, but in a couple of instances, for example, Jen in her presentation talked about the fact that we now have some new land use categories or revised or consolidated land use categories as compared to the existing code. So we had to, for the new NCMU and the town center zones approved through the HODs, we had to, in some cases, say, well, we had to make a decision. So should this be permitted conditional in those new HOD zones, because that wasn't part of the HOD ordinance. I hope that makes sense. It was a little complicated, but we copied everything over with no changes to the maximum extent that we could, given the framework of the zoning update. And then where there were some gaps, because we had changed the structure of the zoning ordinance, we basically followed the policy guidance and the intent of those zones, and we just made an interpretation.
Okay, so incorporating it to the proposed updated zoning ordinance is still based on standards and policies that should be consistent on the old one and consistent on the new one.
Yes, and I can say with confidence that they are consistent with what the council approved for the HODs.
It was primarily a formatting change.
Okay. Thank you. No further questions, Mayor.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Are there anyone else? Okay, we have Councilmember Lin.
Yes. Thank you, Director J. Lee and Holly for a very, very nice, detailed report on the rezoning, on the zoning. I received here the California Housing Defense Fund, and they said there are portions of the proposed ADU regulation that violate the state law, and that the city should correct these issues before passing this ordinance. Do you know anything of this letter?
Yes, we received the letter today, so just a few hours ago, but we reviewed all the issues in as much detail as we could. So I do have a few things I do want to say in response to the letter that we've received.
Okay.
If you really look at the letter, a lot of the comments are related to whether the ADU section in the comprehensive zoning ordinance update is clear enough in exempting state streamlined accessory dwelling units, because the state has a section where it streamlines certain types of ADUs. The letter, I think, is stating that they feel like it wasn't clear enough, but staff believes that it is clear enough. There are multiple instances where we explicitly say unless state law supersedes or unless precluded by state law. And even in practice over the past few years, like the whole treating certain ADUs differently and streamlining them because of the state, this is not a new regulation. So as staff, we've been implementing our current code and understanding that there is a category of ADUs that are treated differently, and we don't apply any local design standards to that category of ADUs. So that is not changing. We feel like the current regulations are abundantly clear in that we state that the state streamlined ADUs are in fact only subject to the state law. So I would say that's probably the biggest issue that covers most of the comments. But I would also speak about a couple of other items that I think are also relevant. Another item is there's a comment about a deed restriction and how the opinion is that a deed restriction is a standard and therefore cannot be applied to these streamlined ADUs. However, staff's response is that it is not a standard. And also, if you look at the handbook that they are citing, the frequently asked question is actually in relation to a specific type of deed restriction, which is for affordable housing. So those are some of the things that we looked into. We also realized that the deed restriction itself, all it does is it just says that you have to comply with our ADU section. And then our ADU section states that those ADUs that are eligible to be streamlined through state law are streamlined through state law. So we don't find any inconsistency there. And then lastly, they do mention another issue about the maximum size and how their, I guess, opinion is that a city cannot establish a maximum size for detached ADUs in multifamily properties. That is not our interpretation. The government code does establish an 800 square foot limit for new detached ADUs, which we see as applying generally to all new detached ADUs. So even those in multifamily properties, they would also be subject to an 800 square foot limit. So if there were not to be a limit, then I think what the letter is stating is that these ADUs on multifamily properties can be of any size. And that's not what, that is not how staff believes we should interpret that requirement in order to better protect our city and its residents. So I guess kind of in summary, I think what I would say is, number one, any ADU language ordinances, we have to provide to the HCD for their review anyways, within 60 days of the adoption of that ordinance. So HCD will review our ADU regulations and they can weigh in on whether they think that we need to update them or not. Staff's recommendation is to let HCD decide whether they think our ordinance needs to be updated. So rather than doing it preemptively, before we even know, I would rather have HCD review it and then let us know. And if they do feel like the ordinance needs to be amended, then we can go back and make those amendments if necessary. But what staff has generally done is that wherever there is room for interpretation in state law, as you can see, the state is taking away local control and as in many areas as possible. Staff has tried our best to maintain as much local control as possible. So if there are areas where we feel like we can take an interpretation that would better protect and allow us to enforce our local regulations and better protect our residences, we've taken that interpretation. Because, for example, if we don't have a size limit for ADUs on multifamily properties, if there is no limit, I mean, I don't think there is anybody who lives in a multifamily property that would be happy about, an ADU that's unlimited, thousands of square feet, and pretty much takes up any available land on a property. So these are the kinds of things that we considered in trying to protect the city as much as possible. So that would be my response to the letter, but it was a pretty long letter. So if there are more questions, I can also provide responses to those.
Nice. Thank you.
And thank you for looking out for our city. So thank you. We have Councilmember Chua.
Thank you, Mayor. I just would like to echo what Ms. Yoli Garcia said, and also Councilmember Lynn. Thank you, Jay, for a good job on this one. Phase one, you were able to translate a very complex general plan into aligned zoning ordinance, and also phase two, that was phase one. Phase two is cleaning up, modernizing, streamlining, and making it easier to access the information for everybody to see. Just want to thank you and the team. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Councilmember Lamb, you have any questions? Okay, we're going to wait till Councilmember Barbadillo. So,
Mayor, if I may, one thing we will have to do before we have a motion would be to read the title. I could take this opportunity to do that now.
okay, go ahead. Please do that. Thank you.
Before the council is a ordinance entitled, "An Ordinance of the City Council of the City of Milpitas Adopting a Comprehensive Update to the Zoning Ordinance, including the addition of a new Title 13 zoning to the Milpitas Municipal Code, repeal of the existing ordinance Title 11, Chapter 10, and amendments to various other sections of the municipal code for consistency with the updated zoning ordinance, and amending the zoning map of the City of Milpitas to achieve consistency between the updated zoning ordinance and zoning map."
Okay, thank you. And I just want to make a comment that from my understanding, our zoning was back in 1955. That was the last one. So it is way overdue. That's over, 70 years? So it's time. And I know that municipal code is a real thick red book. You guys seen that binder. So good luck for updating it. Okay, so we have Vice Mayor Barbadillo back. So now attorney has already read the title
of the ordinance.
Title of the ordinance. And so now we're going to, if I don't see any more comments, then we could have a motion. So we have Councilmember Chua.
Motion to approve item 14. I'm not going to read the whole recommendation. I'm just going to say, based on the recommendation of the staff, it's item 1, 2, and 3.
Is there a second? And we have Councilmember Lynn.
Yes. I second that.
Okay, so it was moved by Councilmember Chua and seconded by Councilmember Lynn. And now we will call for the vote.
Vice Mayor Barbadillo?
Aye.
Councilmember Chua?
Aye.
Councilmember Lamb?
Aye.
Councilmember Lian?
Aye.
Mayor Montano?
And I am an aye. Thank you, everyone. Okay, so we have these two items, C7 and C10. So, and they were pulled by Councilmember Lamb. So I'm going to have Councilmember Lamb go ahead and discuss your case on pulling these items.
Okay, on C7, this is related to Christmas or holiday lighting. And staff has proposed a 75,000 per year for the next 5 years of $375,000 to put on the light. I'd like to ask the staff a few questions. First of all, how many trees are involved on this lighting?
Thank you, Councilmember. And Christian Dorenzo, Public Works Director, is likely online and can help. But Matt Kano, Assistant City Manager, there are 5 redwood trees in the front of City Hall that are lit with this funding.
And it takes 1 day or 2 days to put up?
I'll ask if Director Dorenzo is online that can clarify that, but
it takes 2 days to install the lights and an additional 2 days to remove the lights.
Okay. And then in 2 days, and how do you justify 75,000 just for 2 days of work?
The price or the quote that we've received, Councilmember Lamb, is for a total of 4 days, 2 days to install, 2 days to remove the lights. It's all inclusive, so it includes rental of equipment, and it includes any cost for that is the Calaveras is a Caltrans right away, so it includes permitting and traffic control that's going to be required. The work is done after hours, and all other incidental. So it's all inclusive. It also includes, once the lights are removed, boxing and appropriately storing them.
Okay. What I'd like to do is, for my personal opinion, I feel 75,000 is excessive for this job, and I would not approve this 75,000 per year for the next 5 years. I would ask Public Works to maybe hang the lights around the buildings if possible. If not, then we just don't do it. Any comments from other?
So we have we have Councilmember Vice Mayor Barbadillo wants to make a comment on that.
Did I mishear it? Is it 50 trees or 5 trees?
5 trees.
I'll climb 2 for half the price. I think it's a legitimate concern, right? How about right? How about have we looked at our own resources to just take down the lights and put them? If it's too high, then maybe something in the middle, or if it's too expensive at 75,000, let's just put it around the building.
Yeah.
I'll ask Director Dorenzo to address whether we can do this ourselves around the building. I do know that it's the building isn't set up to string lights around there, but I'll ask Christian to elaborate.
Have we been spending 75 for the last few years that we're doing it?
Yes, I don't know how long it's been, but I do know that we have been spending it since I've been here, and it was actually 80,000 last year, so the bid resulted in a bit of a lower cost.
And if I may, this is Luz Cofresio, Director of Finance, and also purchasing agent for the city. Holiday lights, we went out for an IFB. We had many folks who I think it's actually in the memorandum, but I think over 200 folks basically opened the bid, but only one response came in, and that came from holiday lights. So if we went out again, we would more than likely get the same result.
And Director Dorenzo can add to this, but we just don't have the equipment to be able to do this ourselves.
So,
Well, I don't know. I'm a little bit not convinced of the 75,000, to be honest. We maybe what we would probably want to hear are alternatives. If either it's an alternative on how to put them and take them down, or an alternative would to put them so that we can spend more on, let's say, programs, holiday programs, things like that.
we have, my city manager wants to make a few comments.
I think that one of the options could be for us to first describe to what extent the City Hall campus will already be decorated with holiday lights, that there are other aspects and components. We could build from there in a manner that's within a far lower, or present some options of non-hanging lights at the 75,000, but still getting a holiday feel at the City Hall campus. We brought this forward just as a reminder, as this was a budget proposal item, and so we did debate internally whether this was prudent. We brought it forward because of council direction, but we completely agree that there is other options that we can pursue that still create the holiday environment that can cost less and result in savings for the city, or investments in activities and programs.
And I also wanted to clarify, the holiday tree is not part of this.
Right.
So if we do have the holiday tree is not part of this budget item on the agenda today. So the holiday tree, if for some reason this was not approved tonight, the holiday tree is still funded and moving forward.
So we can bring awareness of what the total package is right now funded, and then what more we can do within much more limited resources.
So does that mean we defer this item for some other time, or do we take care of it now?
No, I want to.
Okay. So we have Councilmember Chua.
Thank you, Mayor. I have a clarifying question. You said 5 trees. Where are those trees?
These are the redwood trees on the front of City Hall. They kind of wrap around. I have some outside my window.
The 2?
On Milpitas Boulevard, and wrap around towards Calaveras a little bit as
And
well.
one in the back, by the pond? 1 or 2?
Let me ask, Christian, are you aware of?
They are just 2 on Calaveras as you around the right-hand turn pocket, and 3 in front of City Hall on Milpitas Boulevard in front of Matt's office. Nothing in behind City Hall.
In the back. On the side? Yeah. Maybe if you're looking for options, maybe reduce the number of trees, if that could be an option. The front one, keep those 2 in front. I don't know. I'm just looking for reducing the costs and still keep the holiday spirit. That's an open suggestion. That's all I have, Mayor.
Thank you. I will add that last year was the first year that they put some decorations, and that was really a big hit. We got a lot of comments from the public. I agree, it is very expensive, and I don't know how the public will feel about not having because it does make a big difference. The people love those trees, decorated, but, it comes down to the money, the cost. So, yeah, we'll have to come up with different options, and not sure how we'll do that. Do you want to what are your suggestions, Councilmember Lamb?
They have decoration pole on the center of Calaveras. Between the 2 rows in the center, they have some decorations. I'd like to propose maybe we spend some money of bring back those decorations. Between it's on Calaveras, on the island. Yeah.
They had decorations. Oh, you're talking on the medians?
Yeah, the median. Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
I don't remember, I don't recall that.
Yeah, a long time ago.
Oh, way
they have
back?
that. And then for some recent years,
Oh,
they
but
don't
that-
do that anymore.
Yeah, I think that's Caltrans property, but I guess with city manager, what, do you have any recommendations?
We can explore that option and find out what extent of decorations, who did it, and just get more information and come back.
Yeah, it's,
I agree with that, yeah. Okay.
and then probably more people can see, when they drive through Carreras, if more people can observe the Christmas or holiday decorations if we have, rather than just 5 trees.
Yeah, and like I said, that last year was the first time they put some decorations in the front, and that was a big hit, so. Okay, Councilmember Chua, you have your hand?
I have a clarifying question to City Attorney. Do we act on this, or do we postpone it, or do we approve or disapprove? What is the action?
Recommendation?
So we would need the council to award the bid and direct us to look at options with 2 trees or costing options, reduced costing options, but not at the 70, you can take an action in your motion, not at the 75,000 level, right? That our direction is to negotiate a lesser cost on lesser trees. I'm hearing in the front of City Hall, you're not committing to it, right? It's just to bring back to council to see what the pricing would be and whether that's a feasible amount.
Or maybe no cost at all?
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Maybe that's an option too.
Right, but
Reduce
if
or
you want-
no?
I'll let the city attorney,
Yeah.
we have a bid, an actual bid that.
Oh, we do?
That's the first part is to award a bid. And then the second part is still to accomplish the contract by negotiations.
Yeah.
So I'll let
We
the
need-
attorney
we need
speak
that,
on
yeah.
what's needed exactly.
So the council is not required to award the bid or approve the contract tonight. I see very clearly that not prepared to approve the contract at this particular cost tonight. In terms of awarding the bid, if you award the bid, that would find them responsive and responsible, and that may be an issue if we wanted instead down the road to fully reject all proposals. So if the council wants to keep the options of staff open, the council could simply say, we are not approving this item tonight. We're providing direction with staff to bring forward additional proposals, including by negotiating with the responsive bidder.
So move the latter part.
Sarah, Councilmember Lamb, did you have any comments on that?
Yeah, I just want to make this clear that we are not approving,
Yes.
we are not award a bid.
No,
Yeah.
yeah. That's the motion from.
That's right.
That's the motion from
Then,
city attorney.
Yeah, we can discuss more for how we want to decorate.
And then there's, yeah.
Okay. So are you seconding it,
Yes.
Councilmember Lamb? Okay, so it was moved by, from Councilmember Chua and seconded by Councilmember Lamb. And then we'll call for the vote unless someone else has other, no, we'll call for the vote. Want to drag it on. Okay.
Vice Mayor Barbadillo?
Aye.
Councilmember Chua?
Aye.
Councilmember Lamb?
Aye.
Councilmember Leanne?
Aye.
Mayor Montano?
And I'm an aye. Thank you. Okay, all right, now we're moving on to C10. Councilmember Lamb. State your case.
Yeah, on C10, I'd like the staff to show us more detail the approval process of this grant. Okay. The approval process and the requirements.
Councilmember Lamb, can you read it so the audience will know what exactly?
Oh, okay, sorry. On C10, we see report on workforce housing rental assistance, approve merit updates, and approve additional appropriation from the Affordable Housing Community Benefit Funds for the workforce Housing Rental Assistance Program, Round 2.
Oh, sorry. Yes, it's Councilmember. So Sarah Balcha from our housing team is online, and we have a brief presentation that we've prepared where we can quickly walk through this program to share information about how we determine which households are eligible and those requirements, and we can briefly walk through that at the council's pleasure. We have that information available.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and City Council. My name is Sarah Balcha. I'm the Senior Administrative Analyst with the Office of Housing. And as Matt said, I'll briefly go over the PowerPoint, which I'll make sure to focus on the eligibility details. Next slide, please. So just a little bit of background. In 2017, Governor Brown signed SB 2 Building Homes and Jobs Acts, which through funding real estate transactions, it created what's known as a Permanent Local Housing Allocation Grant. In November of 2022, City Council approved our 5-year plan and our 2019, 2020, and 2021 funding application. We were only allowed to apply for 3 years at a time. In February, we received a letter awarding us for just over $1 million. 5% went to program administration, which is the maximum allowed, and then 20% to homeless outreach and 80% to workforce housing rental assistance program, or RAP. In October of 2023, City Council approved $645 to 50 households for 24 months as part of the RAP program, which is what we are here to discuss. Next slide. So the eligibility requirements, there are some state eligibility requirements that we must follow. One of them is that households must earn an area median income of 30% or less, and any rental assistance given through PLHA must be for a minimum of 6 months. So as you can see in the table, 30% AMI, that is extremely low income. For a household of 1, that's an income of $42,200. For a household of 4, that's $60,250. For the city's additional requirements, we did make sure that at least one adult either live in and or work in Milpitas. The tenant must be in good standing. They must have a lease agreement. They must occupy the entire unit, and there are no shared living arrangements, and at least one adult in the household must be employed to initially qualify. And those were the additional requirements when we did round 1. Next slide. So our reasons for the proposed changes is we had the application period open from March 27th through June 7th, 2024. There were 108 applications received, but 22 deemed eligible. Potential reasons were the restrictive state requirement of 30% AMI, which we cannot change. And we did receive a high amount of media coverage, which may have caused an increase in non-Milpitas-based households applying for 24 months of rental assistance. So our 2 proposed changes for this report is to remove individuals needing to occupy the entire unit and 1 adult in the household needing to be employed at qualification. Next slide. And just to go a little bit more in depth about how we came to those 2 points. So the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development considers rent burden as any household that spends 30% or more of their income on housing, and severely rent burdened is if the household spends more than 50% of their income on housing. Per Zillow, the average cost of a 1-bedroom in Milpitas is $2,923. The table on the screen shows the average cost of 3 different unit sizes and the income range a household would be at that for each unit size. Which would still consider them rent burden or severely rent burdened. So for instance, a 2-bedroom in Milpitas cost an average, I'm sorry if you can hear my cat in the background, cost an average $3,450. And if a household makes $138,000 or less, they would be considered rent burdened. If the household makes $82,800 or less, they would be considered severely rent burdened. For a household of 3, the average rent is $4,200. If the household makes $168,000 or less, they are rent burdened. And if they make $100,800 or less, they are severely rent burdened. So the data demonstrates that it would be extremely unlikely for a household with a 30% AMI to afford the average rent in Milpitas. So for this reason, staff are recommending eliminating the restriction of a household renting an entire unit, as many households that fall in the 30% AMI range may be obtaining housing through shared living agreements. However, they do and they will still be required to have a lease agreement, and all payments are made to the landlord, not to the tenant. Next slide, please. And the second requirement staff recommends eliminating is the requirement of one adult in the household being employed upon qualification. Staff engaged in discussions with HCD about the removal of the workforce requirement and was informed the city is unable to target and/or prioritize certain populations of Milpitas residents. To reopen the program, the city would need to expand its PLHA rental assistance to all Milpitas households with an income of 30% AMI or lower. Staff feel this would be extremely beneficial, as one of the city's most vulnerable populations are its low-income seniors. Many households comprised solely of adults aged 50 and older find themselves unable to work and without the means to afford the ever-increasing rent prices. So to increase the number of potential applicants, staff recommends allowing households where at least one adult works outside of or works in Milpitas the opportunity to apply, even if they don't live in Milpitas. The reason is because a part of the original program was due to analysis included in the economic development strategy adopted by City Council in May of 2020, which determined that only 12% of Milpitas residents also work in Milpitas. Since the percentage of the workforce that both lives and works in Milpitas is low, staff recommend assisting residents who work in Milpitas but may not be able to afford to live in Milpitas. However, the priority will be given to Milpitas residents, which HCD has stated is allowed, as their preference is for us to support the residents of our own jurisdiction. So that is the only prioritization we can give is for Milpitas residents, and we just wanted to increase the number of applicants since we did not get 50 applicants in round 1 by allowing those who work in Milpitas but do not live in Milpitas to apply. And then next slide. And I think this would be really helpful because you can see side by side the new requirements and the old requirements. So at least one adult must live and or work in Milpitas. The household income is 30% AMI or less. They must be renting. The tenant must be in good standing. They must be an adult aged 18 or over. They must have a lease agreement, and they cannot live in Section 8 housing. Our old requirements are all of the same things, except for they must occupy the entire unit. And at least, I'm so sorry, my cat is making a mess right now. At least one adult in the household must be employed in Milpitas to initially qualify. And next slide. So the reason we're coming to council today is because there are expenditure deadlines. HCD does define the expenditure deadline as when HCD has given the city the funds and the city has given it to a third party. So even if it hasn't gone to the public yet, if the third party administrator has the funds, it's considered expended. So right now our 2019 and 2020 funds have met the expenditure deadline. We do have one approaching for our 2021 funds of April 30th, 2026. It's still a ways away, but we wanted to come to council and relook at wrap round 2 to figure out how we can relaunch it and help 28 more households. We are asking that council continue with the third-party administrator forward for a fee of $20,000 that would come out of the Affordable Housing Fund. Since the original program did not have 50 households, there's about $13,000 that the city will not be billed for, and that amount was also going to come out of the Affordable Housing Fund. So it's about a difference of $7,000 additional dollars that a wraparound 2 would have, but forward, the program guidelines have already been created. There's a website, so the launch would be relatively easy. It would be us really making sure that we have a targeted outreach as much as possible. Next slide. And so we're here before you to ask you to receive the report and approve the Workforce Housing Rental Assistance Program Round 2, along with the programmatic updates, and then to approve and authorize the city manager to allocate an additional appropriation of $20,000 from the Affordable Housing Community Benefit Fund to forward for the administration of Round 2. And then happy Councilmember Lamb to ask any other questions that you have. Thank you.
Yes, can you go back to slide 8?
And Sarah, as we're going back to that slide, as Sarah mentioned in the verbally during the presentation, but we didn't make it as clear in the actual written presentation. We are recommending in the agenda report to prioritize Milpitas residents first over those who work in Milpitas but don't live here.
Okay.
And so if the staff report is accepted, that is already in the staff recommendation.
Okay, I have a number of questions. The first one, why did we contract out to third party to administrate this distribution of this funds?
Thank you. So Forward is someone that we have partnered with in the past. They also do our rent relief program. And so they're really able to handle the amount of applications that we get. And they have an online website that makes it a lot easier for the public to apply to. And it's, I think, about 65 different languages is what the website is available for. They also have a specified intake team and a specified quality control team. So just thoroughly making sure that the lease agreements are valid, the income is correct, getting the landlord's W-9 and making sure that everything is following its due diligence and following the rules and executing according to both the state rules and what the city has declared. And so staff wouldn't have capacity to manage a program this large and to do it for 24 months. It would also require the assistance of the finance department, who also don't have capacity to give the funds out. So partnering with a third party is an extremely effective way for us to ensure that our applicants are receiving the funds regularly and making sure that quality control is done.
Okay, and I see the award year was 2019, 2020, and 2021. So after 2021, the program stops?
No, so actually we are entitled to our 2022 and 2023, and staff do anticipate coming back to council either at the end of this year or early next year for how to use those funds. And at this point, the next 5-year PLHA round has not been announced, but we've been in conversations with the county and we do expect PLHA to continue.
Okay, and on this table, when you add up those 3 years, it's about $1 million. And how much of the $1 million has been spent? I mean, or distributed to the applicant?
That's a great question. I would have to do the math, and I can do it really quickly. It's been about a year that they've received the Workforce Housing Rental Assistance Program, and it's 22 households that have received $645 a month. And so they're on track. We just reviewed their income to get it for a second year. I can do that calculation if you'd like, just to figure out what that 1-year marker is. And then we also did fund through this program 1 year of homeless outreach, which funded the last fiscal year. And so that was just under $200,000. So it looks like about $170,280. But again, that's just because of the first year and approximately to be the same amount, right, for the second year. And so then we're just looking at we originally thought we were going to fund 50 households. So we have basically 28 households that can be funded for 2 years at $645, which is what we're hoping round 2 will do.
So if I understand, we have distributed about $100,000 so far?
$170,000
Oh,
for,
$170,000.
yes, for RAP.
So we have approximately 800,000 remaining, 830,000.
So there was 170,000 for RAP. So RAP was only about, I think it's 763,000 was actually the amount that would go out to the public once we included how much was going to homeless outreach and then the 5% for program administration. So of around the 763,000, I believe I can get that number. But around that, 170,000 has been distributed, and another 170,000 will be going out in this next year.
So sounds like the remaining amount is about 600 plus thousand.
Yes, if I did the math of 28 households for 24 months times $645, it would be $433,440. And that's what we're asking council to approve for round 2.
I see. And here on this slide, it says 200,000 spent on 2021 allocated for homeless outreach.
Yes.
What's that mean?
So if you may recall from an earlier slide, so for PLHA, we allocated 5% for program administration, and then after that deduction, 80% was for the workforce housing program, and 20% was for homeless outreach. So we entered into a contract with We Hope to do homeless outreach for the city and case management. So they've been going out and doing outreach. They've been giving hot meals, delivering water, making sure that they're getting what's called a VSPADAT, which is a type of assessment that makes sure they're on the county's community queue. So anytime there's shelter available, they're notified and they're in the line for housing. So they've been making sure our homeless residents have as many resources as they can possibly have.
Okay. So it sounds to me we have more funds coming in, more awards, but we couldn't find the applicant. We couldn't find enough applicants to award us.
Yes, for round 1. And so we're hoping that by doing a round 2 and by removing the workforce restriction for Milpitas residents, that it might help, as well as not requiring people to have living in an entire unit. Because again, with an income restricted that small, it makes it very hard to afford, as we can see, the average rent, but even affordable rents. So there may just be more shared living arrangements. So we're hoping between those two that we would get the 28 households.
And we, just to add to what Sarah said, is by removing the requirement that someone has to be employed in the family, we really think, and we mentioned in the gender report, that older adults and seniors may be able to take much more advantage of this now, where they may not have been able to before because of the workforce requirement.
Yeah, that's why I was going to say that. That's great. Can you go back to one more slide? There's a slide showing the requirement. Not this one. Yeah, that one.
And as you're asking your question on this one, Councilmember, I just wanted to reiterate that that first bullet on the left, at least one adult must live and or work in Milpitas. In the agenda report, we indicate that with the first priority going to those that live in Milpitas. And so if the agenda report is adopted, that language would be a part of it, the first priority, those that live in Milpitas.
Right. One thing I mentioned to the staff previously is I also worry about people who live in other city. They could potentially apply for this funding as well. So they might get dual funding. So one of the thoughts I have is perhaps instead of saying and or, we just say and. So only limits to Milpitas residents. So other residents from other cities, if they want to apply this kind of funding to help on their rent, they could on their city. So that prevent people to apply this program twice.
Yeah, so I wanted to make a comment on that, on what, kind of piggyback on that. I do agree that it should just be our residents because they could be double dipping.
Exactly.
And I think once we've already eliminated that they don't have to be working, I think we'll be getting a lot more. Because
Yes.
I did have some constituents that one of them was disabled, the other one had cancer, and they were both not working, so they weren't eligible, and they just had a hard time. And I think once you add that they don't have to be working, I think we'll be getting a lot more.
Instead of $645, I propose as a variable, depend on the,
Well, Councilmember Chua, do you want to add something?
currently it's a fixed amount, $645 per applicant. Some might pay more on the rent, and some might pay less. So there should be a requirement that the amount cannot exceed the rent amount. If someone rent a garage for $500, so we're not going to give them 645.
Correct. We can absolutely include that as an extra requirement that what we give them cannot exceed their rent amount.
Right.
We can include that.
And then some people may have a family and their rent might be few $1,000s, as some of the examples show earlier. So we could help those families with a little bit more higher than $645.
One suggestion, I'm going to ask Sarah to please weigh in on this if she disagrees, but one thing that is in our rental assistance program, which is a different program, we have an emergency exception allowance that based on, our review on the housing team, and I would sign off on those, is if there's an extreme circumstance, we can go up to a higher dollar amount. We can, and Sarah, would you recommend something like that? And if so, what dollar amount, Sarah, would you recommend that we could go up to in extreme circumstances with my approval?
If we went up, then we'd have to go lower for the other families. So since this one's set for 24 months, I don't know that I would necessarily recommend it, because if we started doing a tiered approach, I think it could get relatively complicated. But I think when we're looking at the 2023 funds, staff can look at maybe a different type of rental assistance program and maybe consider some of the ways in doing a tiered approach or giving certain people and certain populations a higher amount of money. But for this one right now, I think it would be hard since everybody would be getting 24 months. You'd kind of want to keep the amounts consistent for 24 months.
What restrict us to, why do we need to set for 24 months? Can we set for 12 months and every 12 months they apply again?
We can, if council decides that they want to do a 12-month program instead of a 24-month program, we can definitely do that. And then if council would like staff to look at maybe $645 is the minimum, and perhaps like if $1,200 is the maximum, and set certain, I guess, categories for wanting to go a little bit higher.
I would also suggest if we are going to, City Manager wanted to.
City Manager wants to make a few comments on yours.
I think what's important for us to be mindful of is that this is a state program that sets the grant parameters, as well as we are contracting out for administration of the program. So to the extent that we are redesigning, we need to make sure that any of the changes like the tiers or the 12-month are consistent with the requirements that the state puts forward. And particularly if we're beginning to look at applicants coming every 12 months to apply and be renewed, we need to understand the administrative costs that Forward would charge us to clear the applicants out. My guess is that because they're doing double the work, they're going to increase the administrative cost to administer the program, because where their pricing is based on a 24-month period of clearance of 22 or 28 candidates, we're now asking them to process twice the amount.
If someone move out from Milpitas, then how do we take care of the this funding?
That has not happened, but they would not be receiving it anymore. So we do pay the landlord, and they're supposed to report anytime that they move. And at a year, we have been doing checks with the landlord to make sure that the address is still accurate. But yes, and then if we did find out at a certain point, like fraud did happen, there are remedies that we can take to ensure that we get the funding back.
And I would also add one challenge with going to a 12-month period right now. An additional challenge is that in our agenda report, as Sarah mentioned, we have an expenditure deadline of April 2026 in order to obligate these funds. We don't have to have them all paid out by then, but we need to have them obligated by then. And so we'd have to analyze it, but it could be a challenge just going 12 months at a time with this funding. But we will be back in front of you with the next tranches of funding later this year, early next year, to talk about the design of the next program.
Okay. By looking at the table earlier, seems like the fund has an expired date of 5 years. Is that correct?
On page 3 of our agenda report, it shows the allocation year and the expenditure deadline, and it shows that the last tranche of this money we have to expend by April 2026. Now, if we have obligated with our administrator and they're just waiting to have it paid out to the residents, that meets that requirement. So
how many years can we keep the money?
But until it actually gets paid out to the residents?
Once the state awards us funds, how many years we have before they expire, or this fund is locked on to us? It's up to us to. Is there expiration on these funds? When they award to us, do they give us the entire amount upfront?
Sarah, you go ahead.
Thank you, Councilmember. We do request the funds, and so HCD reimburses us. We do also report every single year to HCD based on where the funds are. So, and then when all the funds have been given to the public, we do a closeout report. So HCD is very well aware of what monies is with our third-party administrator and what has been distributed to the public. There is a deadline. I would have to double check on when it needs to go to the public, but I believe it's closer to like 2030. So there is time. However, I think we would run into complications with having the administrator have a certain amount of funding that's not technically obligated, and we don't know what that would be. And it would be it could be problematic if we'd have to like ask for those funds back, and then it could potentially lead to like us losing the funds if we weren't able to obligate those funds. So I think I would definitely recommend for the 2020 and 2021 funds to kind of proceed with the 24-month, but for 2022 and 2023, we'll take in council's considerations and really figure out how can we restructure the program and look at giving different scenarios instead of just 24 months.
I still not clear about, is there a deadline on those funds? Can you go back to the table again?
There is a deadline for it to go out to the public. I will have to check with HCD for when that deadline is.
Okay, sounds like the deadline is years. It's not, at least several years or more.
Yes, but the money to be considered expended, so by 2021, that is April 30th of 2026. And so our third-party administrator would need to have the funds. So I think our problem is if we don't know
not this slide.
Sorry, the next slide.
Not this one. The table that shows
It's
those
the second
years.
to last slide.
2019, 2020.
Yeah, this one. Now, 2019 expenditure deadline is 2024. It seems like it's 5 years. Is that right?
Yes. But for expenditure for the state, it's with our third party. So it doesn't necessarily have to be with the public. So we have a little bit more time for it to go to the public, but we do just want to make sure that, we know where all the funds are going. And if we're giving money to a third party administrator, it's because it's going to go out to the public.
Okay. And then that 20,000 is a one-time fee?
Yes.
So we pay that already.
Not yet, because we're asking for council to approve the programmatic changes in a round 2. And if there is a round 2, then we would pay forward. That
How
one
about round one?
for
Round
round
one,
run,
one?
yeah,
Yeah.
we have paid forward some of their program administration, but there is a small fee that they get every month for administering the program. So they haven't received all of their program administration funds yet.
I see. Okay. Yeah.
Thank you for that. I had a couple of clarifying questions. So the rent that they pay, what we pay them, is that the full amount of the rent or just part of their rent?
Just a portion of the
It's a
rent.
okay, portion of it.
And it's paid to the landlord directly.
Okay. And do we set the 24 months, or does the state set that 24-month period?
Sarah?
Yes, that's a great question. So the state's requirement is just a minimum of 6 months. And so back when we created the program originally, we came to council and gave council a couple different scenarios, and council decided to go with 24 months. So we are keeping it consistent because round 1 already received 24 months and $645. So that's what we're recommending for round 2. But 24 months is not a state requirement.
For this period, but in the future, it could be changed to every 12 months.
We can, yes.
Yeah, it makes more sense, because this reminds me of Section 8. In Section 8, they have to renew every year, 12 months. So it's this is just a city Section 8. And so maybe in the future, change it to every 12 months. Also, how do we quantify that the administrator forward is doing a great job? What, do you go back to the recipients and ask them, hey, what did the contractor forward do a good job? Or how do you measure that?
That's a great question. Right now with RAP, we had partnered with the Stanford Impact Labs, and we do surveys of the recipients. And the surveys are more so based upon like how stretched they feel about rent. If they had a $500 emergency, like could they pay it? So there's questions more related to that. But it does kind of leave them room for them to talk about their experience and how applying was. I think the city could work on developing kind of some outreach or check-in with the public just to make sure that forward is being as responsive as possible. It's definitely a conversation that always comes up if somebody reaches out and they're having issues with an application, or for instance, we do check in with them about how the process goes and talk to forward about how to improve it. We've gotten a lot of positive feedback that the application is very easy online for rent and rental assistance, for RAP and rental assistance, and that they are responsive. But I do think that's probably somewhere that staff should look at, finding other avenues just to kind of check in with residents on a regular basis about how forward is doing and if they are meeting their needs.
Agreed. And just to say, we could do some surveys of a select number of the, of the folks afterwards through our staff. So we can do that.
We have to make sure that they're doing their job, and we're paying them all this money, and yeah, I don't know how you want to do it, but just, as you mentioned, a survey. I have gotten complaints that they come from someone had applied and they kept asking for the same information over and over again, and they just I want to see if there's some kind of accountability that they're doing their job and if they're doing it efficiently and effectively. So that needs to be done. I think that's the only question I had. So anybody else? We have Councilmember Chua.
Thank you, Mayor. Also, we use forward with our small business grants as well. So if you're going to do a survey, can you please include the recipients or for the small business grants? Because the economic development team, they're using forward as well. The feedback that I got from the recipients, they have gotten better this year. The last grant that we did, it's more online friendly, more efficient, and they have improved. That's what I'm trying to say. So So please include the small business grants on the survey as well. And any other forward grants that they're managing.
We will. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I agree. I did last year. Yeah, I get from the business, small business. Yeah, a couple of complaints. Again, and then now that I'm thinking about this, do we bid this contractor out, or do we bid for this contract?
I don't believe we did do a bid for RAP, but if there is a next rent relief program, there would be a bid for it.
Yeah, I think by law it has to be bidded out. I'm not sure, but okay. Any more questions? We have Councilmember Lin.
It's not a question. Well, it is a
comment.
question. A comment. Forward for a fee of, is that $20,000 or?
Yes.
Okay, so we have an extra zero there. I just
Oh,
want to
yes,
make sure.
thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, good catch.
Okay. All right. So, what is the will of the council? Someone have any recommendations? Matt?
Oh, thank you. Well, I would just summarize what I've heard right now, the two changes that I've heard so far. And I've heard there's some back and forth. The two changes that I'm tracking, one is to make sure that we're not paying more than what their rent is. And I don't, so to make sure that happens. And then also to make sure we do surveys of our residents that are utilizing this program and the Milpitas Business Micro Enterprise Grant Program as well. So those are the two changes to the staff recommendation I've heard so far.
So a follow up on that. So forward, what other, just those two that they're overseeing?
And our rental assistance program as well, right, Sarah?
Yes.
Okay, so those three.
Those three.
Councilmember Lamb.
Yeah, and most important is Milpitas resident only.
Okay, correct. Oh, thank you. And so as opposed to prioritizing Milpitas residents, which is a staff recommendation, and just to focus on only Milpitas residents.
Yeah.
Is that it?
And,
go ahead.
Yeah, there's a point the mayor made earlier. I couldn't agree more. We need to prevent for if a landlord rent out to someone, and if the tenant left after 6 or 9 months, this program potentially give the landlord for 24 months and without verifying it. So the landlord will get free money.
Thank you. And so we can take that as direction to work forward to ensure that's not
So we
happening.
need to verify in some way. If someone move out, how do we check that? And the landlord no longer can receive the money.
Correct. And I don't have, as Sarah, unless you do, I don't have the exact mechanism on how Forward does that right now, or we'll do that, but we can take that as direction to work with Forward to ensure that that isn't happening and to put some steps in place.
Yes, right now at the 1 year mark, we did an income check and verified that they're still living in the same place, but we'll make sure to talk to Forward about how can we do that more frequently and just really make sure that if anybody does move out, that we're not paying the landlord.
So to summarize, there's 4 things: making the surveys, make sure we're not paying them more rent than they owe. Milpitas residents only, and to make sure that, to prevent fraud, make sure there's a strong mechanism in place to ensure that landlords don't continue to receive money when people move out. So those would be the 4 amendments to the staff recommendation that I've heard.
And one more we talked about earlier, if the $645, can we up that? Is if some rents are higher.
The challenge, as Sarah mentioned, with upping that would be that it would have to come from someone else, because since all the 28 spots that we have left, everybody is eligible for $645 for a 24-month period. So if we give somebody $1,000, that would mean we would need to reduce somebody else because we only have a limited pot of money.
But right now we don't have that problem. We have less applicant.
We included in the report that if we don't get 28 applicants, that we would look at, staff could recommend increasing the monthly amount by whatever amount would allow all funds to be expended. So we've already accommodated, if there isn't 28, then we could go into a scenario of giving higher amounts.
Okay,
So
okay,
staff,
that's good.
if council's willing to give staff that discretion, we can do exactly as the city manager said.
Yes.
Okay.
The other one is to check if we have to do a bid on giving them the contract.
Yes, thank you, Councilmember. Mayor, we're comfortable with this. This is just amending their existing contract. We would absolutely follow up in the future for future contracts on that, on potential bid.
All right,
Okay.
so
How would the staff like us to make a motion on this?
So you would motion, also motion to approve staff's recommendation, and I can list those 5 changes again, just to clarify for the record.
I would agree with that. There is one legal recommendation I would make. Because this is state-funded terms, and there are terms of the grant, and that staff has not vetted these potential programmatic changes by HCD to make sure they're compliant with the terms of our grant. What I'd say is with those programmatic changes subject to approval by HCD. So if HCD said we will not allow you to make those changes, then we would not make those changes.
So for now, we can make those changes until otherwise.
No, what I was saying was, what Matt, you asked for a form of motion. Matt said approve the recommendation with the 5 changes, which he will list. And then I was recommending one additional part of that motion, which is that the changes would be subject to approval by HCD. And if they were approved by HCD, then they won't be, those changes won't be made.
Yeah.
I don't think that's really necessary because whatever we decide, it's going to go to HCD anyways, and then they'll let us know anyways. So I don't think we need that little amendment there. That's my opinion.
The problem that would happen is then staff would have contrary direction for program administration to administer in a way that HCD may find us in violation of the terms of the grant. That's why I'm saying is be very clear to staff of if HCD says you're not allowed to do that with the grant, then we won't do changes that are inconsistent with the terms of the grant.
Yeah, it's just because you said the word recommended, so not sure.
I think one of the points that would help clarify is when the city originally went to apply for these grants, it was required to provide the state with a 5-year plan, and that's where the 24 months came up. That's where the $645 amount. So what we are requesting, to the extent that we're making changes to our original plan, we do need to work in advance with the state to approve amendments to what we originally submitted. So that's where the city attorney is being very clear in that we are formally needing to first coordinate with the state on changes to the plan that we presented the first time we were awarded 3 years of funding.
That's fair.
Okay, and I just want to clarify the 20,000. No, the 200,000. We spent already for the homeless outreach, or we haven't.
We have, yes.
We have already spent.
Correct.
Okay. Okay.
Is there, on another note, on that, well, now that you raised that issue, I mean, can we get a report on what services are we providing for the homeless? In addition, that's separate, but.
Yes, actually, we had a really robust meeting with the county as well last week, and so we have some information to report on that. So we will provide that separately to you.
Thank you. Okay.
Okay. So
you can make your motion.
Would you like me to summarize the 5 changes?
Yeah, why don't we rephrase the
So
motion?
the motion that I've heard is to accept the staff recommendation with the following changes or amendments. One is to do a survey of the services we receive from Forward. Number 2 is to ensure that we are not paying the landlords more than the rent that they are charging their residents. Number 3, focus on Milpitas residents only in this next round. Number 4, ensure to prevent fraud by making sure that if someone has moved out, that we're still not paying the landlord, and make sure that that mechanism is strongly in place. Number 5 is if we don't have enough applicants in this next round, for this next round of applicants, we can spread any savings amongst those who did qualify in this next round. And then we would make these changes subject to approval by HCD with the state.
Right. Okay.
Is there a second?
I don't want to forget that.
We have one more from the city
As part
manager.
of the council's motion, not included in the staff report, was to follow up with Forward and do a customer service survey, including the micro enterprise grant funds and recent customer experience.
Assistance, yeah.
That's included in the motion.
Okay.
Okay.
So move.
Is there a second? Vice Mayor Barbadillo? Or who made the second? Okay, we have Councilmember Lin made the second. Okay, let's call for the vote. Oh, do we have to do a public comment on this one?
Do need a public comment.
Public comment.
Voltaire, the mayor of Milpitas. Oh, I love figures. So the thing though is I go from the answer to the solution, reverse psychology. Anyway, I wish I could speak about C7, but you voted already. Now, C10. Oh, I think this source, not much. You remove the other 0, so 20 grand. I think it's affordable. So we'll make the homeless or everybody happy, the administrator or whoever's doing it. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Montemayor. Okay. All right, have a good discussion, and so now let's call for the vote.
Vice Mayor Barbadillo?
Aye.
Councilmember Chua?
Aye.
Councilmember Lamb?
Aye.
Councilmember Lian?
Aye.
Mayor Montano?
And I'm aye. Thank you, everyone. Next, we will, actually, we're at the end, announcements. So we'll move on to announcements and any future agenda items. City Manager?
I do. I want to acknowledge that National Night Out was a hit within the community. Our city staff and council members and community were able to celebrate at 28 different parties citywide. And so just wanted to acknowledge the commitment to public safety as well as just solid community engagement for National Night Out. I also want to announce that on Thursday, on August 14th, Mayor Montano will be attending the VTA Policy Advisory Committee meeting to support the VTA staff recommendation that the VTA Board of Directors approve the city's grant application for full funding for the Smart Commuter Program, and that's continuing the shuttle that we have here in Milpitas. And so I do want to also acknowledge our staff and their due diligence and their initiative in making sure that our application rose to the top and was recommended for full funding. So great staff work on this. I know they're not here, but we can share that tomorrow with them. And those are my comments.
Okay, great, thank you. Anyone else have any comments? We see Councilmember Chua?
Exploratory only. I don't have any opinion, but I found out that the city of San Leandro they have a program that gives the doorbell ring, and they're giving that away to the residents. So I would like to explore that to see how they're able to do it. And did I go to sponsors, or how did they manage that? And see if we can do it in our city with no cost or less cost. I just want to know. Thank you.
Actually, I want to follow up with that. I think maybe about 3 years ago, I had
Mayor,
asked.
I believe we need to get consensus on that item.
Oh, okay.
Vice Mayor Barbadillo,
Yes.
Councilmember Chua,
Aye.
Councilmember Lamb,
Yes.
Councilmember Lian,
Yes.
Mayor Montano.
And I am a yes, and then when it comes back, I'll discuss what I.
Oh, okay. I don't know how they did it, but they did.
Okay, is there anyone else that would like, we have Councilmember Lamb.
Yeah, I like to extend the smart car program from Milpitas to San Jose Airport. Just in case some people want to ride to airport, it will be of course currently we charge $250, but going to airport we could charge $10. It's something I'd like the staff to consider.
Okay, so.
We'll need to call for consensus on that as well. Vice Mayor Barbadillo,
Will that include San Francisco?
That would be good.
That's too
$10.
far.
Okay, I'm willing to explore that.
Yeah.
Councilmember Chua,
That includes Santa Cruz beaches?
No.
Okay, yes.
Councilmember Lamb,
Yes.
Councilmember Lian,
Sure, yes.
Mayor Montano.
And I am a yes, that's a great idea, actually. Okay, anyone else have anything? Announcements? Okay, so I want to make an announcement. I attended the National Night Out. I've seen several folks there. It was a great attendance. Went to Home Key and they were having a great time. They had a good barbecue. But the whole point of National Night Out is for neighbors, getting to know neighbors so they can look out for each other. And that's the whole point of National Night Out. And thank you for their public, first responders. They were there and you guys did a fantastic job. They were there and meeting, and they were even playing with the kids. I went to Sango Court and we had our firefighters playing with playing with the kids, playing like that. They were really involved, and that was it was a beautiful thing. It was good. So it was nice. I just wanted to also have staff look. I know we've already talked about it's like we're beating a dead horse here. The weeds, the weeds. I've been getting so many complaints, and hopefully we can come up with a plan how we can clean up those weeds in the city. Okay, anybody have anything else? Okay, well, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone. Good night.